Okay, so for getting ready, we're at the final stage now. We have our plate wiped, we have everything else prepared. We're going to go ahead and work on printing our etching plate now. So the most important thing to know is that you need to go ahead and set the press up correctly. And this press is mechanized, like it's a motorized press, which means that normal presses are inanimate objects. They could care less about you and your safety, but a motorized press is particularly brutal. It's not going to know if you run your own hand over in this thing. It is not gonna stop and back up for you. It's gonna keep going, and you do not want to have your hand run over in this kind of a press. So we've put in some safety guards and everything, but I'm going to walk you through the process that you need to go through in order to make sure that you're very safe when you use this press. So probably the most important thing that you want to do is just straighten out the felts here. So we want to make sure that these are all straight and that nothing is kind of hanging off the edges here, and that it's all prepped and ready to go. So you want to go ahead and kind of get that all set up and everything. And then we want to go ahead and pull the press back to the place where it needs to be so that we can load it up. So you want to just go ahead and, the only way this press works is if it's plugged in. So the plug is actually over here on the wall, and you just want to go ahead and it's pretty clearly labeled, it says press, and make sure that that's plugged in. So after you've plugged in the press, you want to go ahead and turn the knob this way, and so when this little knobby thing is turned this way, the press is going to go that way. When it's turned this way, the press is going to go this direction. Pretty simple. This is neutral, so if I push the button here, this isn't going to go anywhere. But I want to go ahead and back the press up this direction, so I'm going to turn it here. And then the only way this press works is if I push one of these, nothing happens, but if I push them both, it moves. And it's all, again, on this giant motor. And this is set up so that you need both hands right here in order to make this press go. You can't have one hand here as you're pushing a button and have it run your hand over and squish it into a little tiny little flat jack thing. So you want to use both hands. Make sure that everything is clear. Check around it and say clear so that anybody else who's in the room knows. So I'm going to say clear. I'm going to push both of these. I'm going to move the press there so that I have a lot of space to work as I line up my registration matrix. Okay, so you're ready to finally etch your plate. You have the press all set. It's ready to go. You want to make sure that you have your registration matrix all set and in place. So you want to go ahead and put that on the press bed, kind of up here closer to kind of the middle of the press bed. And then you want to go around and get your etching plate ready. So one of the things that I always sort of suggest you might want to do, just to double check, is just to warm the plate up a little bit if it's been sitting around for a bit. So I've got that on the hot plate right now, and I'm warming it like rolls or something good that we could eat. You know, this class always comes back to food, right? So I'm warming up the plate just a touch to get it a little bit hotter so that the ink will kind of pop off there easily. And then I'm just going to lay this down on my registration matrix so that it's perfectly within that little square that I drew on there earlier. Got this all set and ready to go. And so, you know, the idea here is that this is clean. If you want to hit it with some sort of a rag and a little bit of simple green or something like that, just to make sure that there's no greasy stuff on there at all, you know, you'll be all set and ready to go there. And then we have our paper, which we have dampened for a good hour plus, and then we have you know, blotted off like I showed you how to do in an earlier video. So we're just going to go ahead and set that down on there. So I'm going to go ahead and put the paper down where it belongs. And you don't want to scooch this around a whole bunch. You just want to kind of drop your paper down basically right where it goes. And then if you're going to do a multicolored print, you want to go ahead and mark your spots right here, your crosshair registration area. So you want to make sure that you mark those so that you know where to put your paper down. I'll talk more about that when we do another demo on multicolor printing. And then you always, don't forget this. This is very, very important. You always want to go ahead and put a piece of newsprint over the top of this whole concoction, right? If you don't have newsprint down, what could happen is ink will seep through and it'll end up marking up the felts. And I can always tell who forgot because your print is printed on one of the felts. And these things are very, very expensive, so we want to make sure that we don't you know, ruin them. So the felt, this sort of sizing catcher is the first thing. This is a little bit less expensive. One is kind of cheap. It's just a piece of, again, wool felt that's kind of pressed in. And every etching setup usually has a 3-blanket setup. You have your cushion, so you have the sizing catcher. Then you have this big felt called the cushion, which is big and thick, and that's the thing that embosses that paper down in and helps it pull the ink up off of the plate. And then you have a pusher over the top of it. So here we have, in this press, we have these giant felts, and so we're just going to go ahead and lay those down. And you want to make sure that you take some time to like smooth them out, make sure there's no wrinkles anywhere, make sure that everything is in good order, right? So we have our registration matrix down, the plate, paper, a piece of newsprint, then we have our sizing catcher, our pusher, our sizing catcher, our cushion, and then our pusher. So make sure you have the sandwich the right way, which is those 3 felts all together. So once we know this is all set, we can run it through the press. So I want to come over here and I want to go ahead and switch my doodad so that it's pointing this direction, so it sends the plate through that way. And I'm going to make sure it's all clear. Is anybody around here? Everything is set. I'm going to say clear, and I'm going to push the buttons. It'll take its time. So we always want to kind of check our pressure and make sure that this wheel is cranked down as tight as we can get it. You don't want it too loose or else your prints are not going to print. And then I'm going to bring the camera around here in a second and we'll show you what we got when we printed it. Okay, so our prints run through the press now and we're ready to see what it looks like. If you be very careful when you flip up the felts that we go over the top of our felt holder thing that's on top of the presser. You just want to kind of carefully fling them up over the top of it so that they sort of stay out of the way. Then you should be able to take your sizing catcher and carefully place it off to the side, your piece of newsprint, and then we get to see what we actually got here. So carefully, again with clean hands, make sure your hands are nice and clean. You want to go ahead and kind of peel that up and very, very carefully kind of pull it forth, and you'll see that we got this print that is the exact opposite of what was on the plate. And so you can see that we now have, this came off of that particular plate, so everything in reverse. That's etching in a nutshell. So when you're done, you want to go ahead and just clear your plate off, go and clean it, and then you want to recenter the press, which I'll walk you through here. So after you have printed your etching plate and your paper is clean and done and you're all ready for to move on and print another one so you can create an addition, what you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure you dry this in between some sort of weight, or else when you dry the paper is going to dry all wobbly, so your print will look like this, and it's not very pleasant surface on the surface of the paper as it dries. So you want to dry it flat. So we have these handy dandy boards over here that you can use for this. And what you want to do is you want to just pull one of these boards out just a little bit, kind of like I've done here. You want to go ahead and place your print in there, put a piece of newsprint over the top of it, and go ahead and put it in one of these slots. And then you want to go ahead and take another one of the boards and put that over the top of it. So what this will do is this kind of creates enough surface pressure there to dry your print so that it dries nice and flat, but it still lets enough air in so that it's so that it doesn't get all mildewy and stuff. So we're just going to dry these under the boards here for overnight. When you come back tomorrow, it should be nice and dry and ready. So anytime you print anything that involves wet paper, lithography, monotype, etching, you want to make sure that you put your paper between the boards to let it dry flat. Don't forget that step. And if you do forget that step, actually what you can do is you can re-soak your paper real quickly. Just put your print, even with the ink on it, in the water really quickly, and kind of get it a little bit, leave it in there for just a few minutes, pull it out, blot it off, and then put it in between the weights, and that'll dry it flat as well. So you can always re-flatten something as long as your ink is oil-based. It's not going to get all runny and reactivated by the water when you put it into the water. You can spritz it too. Sometimes people like to just spritz them, but re-soak the paper in some way. So when it comes time to recenter the press after you're all done and you're ready to quit for the night, you've got your printing done and you need to reset everything the way it's supposed to go. You want to recenter the press. So the way you're supposed to do that is just to go ahead and whichever side the press is left on, you want to go ahead and turn the handle to the right in this case, and we just want to say check, make sure everything's clear. Say clear. We're just going to go ahead and drive the press all the way to the end here. So that our felts are clear, so that they come loose from the end here. So that you can pull the felts up, and then if you want, you can kind of fold them over like this and lay them up on top of our sort of the holders for them here. Get everything out of the way. You don't want to trap the felts in here overnight. So if you do that, what will happen is the pressure on that top roller will leave a permanent indentation in the felts, and then when you go to run them through, it won't have enough pressure in that particular place, and it'll kind of mess everything up. So you want to make sure that you take the felts out, and then you want to go ahead and reverse your direction and center the press. So we want to push it back through here. No, let me not go. Sometimes if it's loose enough, you actually just have to push it. But we want to go ahead and recenter the press, and then make sure that we set it to neutral, and then we go over and we unplug it. We don't want anyone messing with this thing who's not trained in it, who isn't part of the class. So make sure that you unplug the press over here against the wall before you go home.